Welcome to Phocuswright's Battleground Americas. Whether you're joining us live or replaying this event at a time more convenient for you, we are thrilled to have you tuning in. Battleground was created 5 years ago to give early stage, pre-funded travel startups an opportunity to showcase their technology and innovation in front of the industry. Past winners include Beyond Pricing, who raised over $40 million last fall to develop pricing tools for the short-term rental market, Arise Travel, who uses distributed ledger technology to address inefficiencies in hotel distribution, and Zizu, a software-as-a-service technology and distribution platform for boat charters. The winner of Battleground will join us in November at the Phocuswright conference in Phoenix to showcase their company on our summit stage, which represents the best of the best travel startups globally. I'm Pete Como, Managing Director here at Phocuswright, and we are excited to have you with us to see the cutting edge of early stage travel innovation. Today, we have over 500 of you who will be watching 7 innovative startups pitches chosen from a pool of over 300 companies from our State of Startups database who are under 5 years old and have raised less than $2.5 million in funding. We applied a rigorous screening process to identify a diverse set of startups covering hospitality tech, tours and activities, distribution, airline tech, augmented reality, and AI machine learning. The event actually kicked off earlier today with Mentor Office Hours, which included 10-minute meetings between startups from our attendees and some of our industry's most seasoned travel tech and investment leaders. We now launch into the core programming of Battleground, which includes 7 pitches from a group of really interesting and diverse early stage startups. These startups have been vetted and prepped by our team here at Phocuswright with over 50 collective years of experience with startups and emerging technology. They've been coached on how to develop their pitch so you, the audience, can get a solid sense of their business and market opportunity. They will each have 5 minutes to pitch, followed by 3.5 minutes of interaction with our dragons, who will challenge their assumptions and ask them very pointed questions to help you understand what chance of success they have. After the pitches, we'll have an hour's worth of programming featuring a panel discussion with an investor, a tech CEO, and a couple of startup founders. And that panel will be moderated by Phocuswright's Manager of Research and Innovation, Mike Coletta. The program will conclude with a keynote from John Kim, Expedia Group's President of Platform and Marketplaces, which you definitely don't want to miss, and the awarding of the winners from the pitch competition, which is judge's choice and audience choice. Battleground is just one component of Phocuswright innovation. From the event side, we have Battleground in core global regions, and the winners of each are promoted to the main summit stage at our November event, which features the best startups without any funding limits. We also produce launch competitions at each of our conferences where companies that are older than 5 years are able to pitch and launch new technologies to our audience. Furthermore, we have a number of partnerships in place with associations and other event producers, such as VRMA, the World Aviation Festival, where we bring startups and our pitch production on the road. And lastly, on the event side, we work with our sister company, WIT, to bring innovation programming to virtual events, including the Startup Showcase, which we just produced a couple of weeks back. On the research side, we've built a database of over 3,000 travel startups founded since 2005. We've made this database available to our open access research customers through our Focal Point visualization platform. And finally, on the Phocuswire side of the business, we cover startups in many different ways. We feature them on our startup stage. We curate a list of hot 25 startups each year in the fourth quarter. And we've recorded 30 episodes of our How I Got Here podcast, which features stories from startup founders and has developed quite a following. And if you want to stop by and listen to our good friend Adam Goldstein, who founded Hipmunk, which he sold to SAP Concur in 2016, This episode was just posted this morning. And we use all of this data and insight to inform how we choose which startups to feature on our stages. Over the past 10 years, we've screened thousands of companies. We've placed over 500 of them on our stages. Collectively, they've raised over $4 billion in funding, and 84 of them have been acquired. So what is the current state of travel startups? That becomes a tale of two stories, pre-pandemic and during pandemic. If we consider the last 5+ years for the purpose of this analysis, we looked at over 1,000 startups who collectively raised over $6 billion in funding during that time frame. It's important to note that we pulled ride sharing, taxi hailing, and cycle sharing startups from this analysis because a lot of their business is local rather than travel related. So here we see that funding has been rising dramatically since 2015, nearly tripling from 2015 to 2016, and then doubling again from 2017 to 2018. And 2019 was by far the biggest year in history for travel startups in terms of dollars raised. The first quarter of 2020 actually started out very strong with more than 800 million raised, although 500 million of that was by TripActions, which was founded in 2015. So 2020 began with some pretty good potential, but naturally, as the pandemic set in, funding activity has decreased. Although just as I say that, Sonder, who has skillfully shifted their focus during the pandemic to expand their marketplace beyond kind of that 7-night travel stay, just announced a $170 million Series E round. But if we look a bit deeper into the numbers, while the total funding has increased since 2015, the number of funding rounds has remained relatively flat and even decreased in 2019. The trend of smaller number of later stage companies receiving larger rounds is real, and less money is available for early stage companies. And we expect this trend to continue through the pandemic as investors try to protect their portfolio companies and get them to the other side of the crisis and into the recovery. The Sonder round is a pretty good example of this trend. But then if we think about early stage entrepreneurs, they always seem to find a way to buck this trend. And some of the most innovative companies will almost certainly be founded during this time of crisis. And if you look at Airbnb, you see a good example of a model changing business being founded during a crisis. And in that instance, it was the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. So how do we evaluate which companies have the best chance to succeed? So we look at technology innovation, we look at business innovation, we look at the market opportunity, market size, the ability of the founder to sell his or her company, the quality of the team, and lastly, the potential to create breakthrough value in the industry. So this is the criteria that the judges and dragons will use to score the companies. And as you decide who to vote for, as far as your audience choice, you should really think about these 6 points. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the dragons and judges for Battleground. First, the judges. Carrie Zeil, Director, Amadeus for Startups, Amadeus IT Group. Richard Harris, CEO and Founder, Intent. John Morehouse, Chief Experience Officer, Flight Center Travel Group. Matt Arego, Founder and CEO, Cornerstone Information Systems. Jerry Samuels, CEO, Travel Capital. And for our dragons today, Christina Heggie, Global Partnership Solutions Lead, Travel from Google. Miriam Moscovici, Senior Director, Research and Innovation from BCD Travel. Kurian Jacob, Principal, Highgate Ventures. And last, but certainly not least, Chris Hemmeter, Managing Director from Thayer Ventures. And here are the startups who will be pitching today. We have OccassionGenius, CityGuyd, Scion, UnDelay, myHotel, Sebaya, and Trip Ninja. And to kick us off, please join me in welcoming to the virtual stage, Nate Marcus, CEO of OccassionGenius. Nate, I see your face. Kick us off.
So our technology propels hotels, airlines, as well as OTAs to ride the coming wave that we all are expecting of pent-up demand for live gatherings while keeping travelers informed and safe. And I'm excited to additionally announce a brand new product offering that allows travel companies to engage with end users today in an innovative way that's not tone deaf, that drives travel, and that creates future personalization in a COVID-19 era. Travel has become more experiential and personalized than ever. FOMO, or fear of missing out, is very real. But despite this, and despite leisure events adding millions to the economy globally, we keep missing out on great reasons to travel. And this is especially true for events, whereas activities are well known, tours, monuments, and attractions. Events are those special occasions that happen once a year or once in a lifetime. They drive travel more than activities, but have been underutilized by brands because they've been so difficult to aggregate. So we're excited today to introduce our personalized event discovery technology in how we provide brands the power of events and event inventory in ways that increase trust and drive bookings during this time, especially now that it's harder than ever to know what events are going to happen and when. So here's how our technology works. First, we aggregate and standardize and update events that are going on in each market. We then understand what each event is really going to be like with what we call our event genome. This then is provided to brands to allow them to create personal interest genomes or information that they own about each end user, and then allows them to send hyper-targeted email campaigns to drive future bookings. Our event inventory offers the following things. First, we provide the most exciting content, especially the ones that are travel-worthy. Next, we are the only company to provide copyright-protected descriptions and photos that provide unlimited use for commercial availability. And then we update events in real time so that brands get the most up-to-date information. And much more, from everything between travel worthiness to attendance. We pass all of this information on via white-labeled API to our customers in and out of travel so that their brands get all of the credit. And our model for this data is simple. We charge a licensing fee for our data customized per market, which can be as low as a few mere dollars per market per month. Now, because of coronavirus, more than ever, brands need to provide not just enticing reasons to plan a trip or trip inspiration. We need to assure travelers that their travel plans are responsible and safe, what we call trip reassurance. More than ever, events are being rescheduled. And their measures are being approved to allow them to do so. And we're seeing things from thermal scanning, required hand washing, selling tickets in friend pods, and selling them safe distances apart through creative seating arrangements. We track these changes, and OccassionGenius has passed them on to each brand so that your brand can show passengers how COVID safe an event is or is not going to be. So let's show you some exciting examples of what this looks like. So while OTAs have historically controlled leisure travelers' eyeballs, now hotels and airlines can get in on this game and increase direct bookings by providing a current list of the most exciting annually recurring events happening all globally. Either the events that are already rescheduled for late 2020 and 2021, or that are anticipated to return next year. Everything from Coachella to Oktoberfest. Future travelers get to select the events that they're interested in someday and add them to their bucket list or wish list. And then as each event announces a new date, a hotel, airline, or service will be the first to provide this information to your travelers. Also, you can use our premium data about events to message all loyalty members about the upcoming events that are happening in real time, along with the COVID-19 related safety precautions that each event is taking. But the real power in our technology is something that's exciting for brands. And that's that through our data, you can learn more, even during this time, about each passenger, traveler, and guest. By tracking their clickstream data on your site or asking them explicitly, travelers reveal what they're interested in. So say a traveler's foodie and is looking for things that are family friendly. Now you can easily send a hyper-targeted email to each traveler. Say the top 10 family-friendly foodie fall festivals with timely packages from your brand. Right before coronavirus.
Finish it up, Nate.
Okay, great. So we've been finishing up brand traction with brands like Kayak and Motto, made up of a team of serial entrepreneurs, and excited to leverage the power of events for your brand.
Thank you very much, Nate. Well done.
Great.
Let's bring the dragons on here. Make sure you're unmuted. So events certainly have been impacted quite substantially during this pandemic. I think case in point here with Battleground. What do you think, dragons?
What a challenging space, Nate. I mean, it's, you know, on the one hand, you're dealing with content that is just not only up in the air, but completely obliterated, and maintaining any kind of integrity in that content over time is going to be incredibly difficult, and probably a supplier relationship that is frankly just not really interested in talking to you right now, given the fire hose that they're trying to, you know, get a hold of. So how do you maintain through the next 6 months relevance to their needs?
Great. The COVID-19 safety-related precautions, as well as this bucket list concept, is a direct result from the conversations that we've had with them. So what we used to be selling was, here are the dates of the events, book your trip. What we're selling now is recognizing that that's tone deaf. Just like you put it, the events are up in the air. So it allows brands to stay top of mind and actually preemptively and proactively learn more about each end user to drive travel as soon as these events come back. And what they're most excited about is not just that they can market events next year, but every subsequent year, because this bucket list is really, what do you want to, do and see in the next 20 years? So they're excited about that. Yep.
Great.
Nate, could you talk a little bit about how you ingest all of the data and aggregate it from both like the general content scalability, how much it's manual, how much it's automated, and whether you can do it globally or regionally or market to market?
Excellent, sure. So we have two data sets. One is a travel-worthy data set. This is global. It's the best events globally. And then we have a product that we call local curated events. And these are the smaller, the open mics, the draft picks, the happy hours that are happening around each hotel, for example. The way that we aggregate, we do it in three ways. First, with official partnerships with companies like Ticketmaster. Second is by scraping local calendar sites, over 10,000 of them, and pulling them in, just the factual information. And then third, we do have a network of right now 135 people who are curating and finding the best events that we might be missing in our database to provide a real local spin.
Nate, are you a total B2B business, or but now how does the traveler actually come in and put their preferences? Is it on the supplier side or site, or how does that happen?
It is. We are fully B2B. And one of the reasons we do that, it's very intentional. It's to give our partners the ability to be an event hero to their own clients and provide something that's unique in the marketplace. So it's like giving them a Lego, and each brand has different uses for it. Some build this for SEO. Some we call a proactive concierge email, letting them know, here are the events happening during your stay. If you want to stay an extra day, click here. Some of them are sending hyper-targeted messages after, and some of them just want to keep you on their website. So whatever team pulls this in, they have the ability through our API to directly integrate it for a seamless customer experience.
I'll just offer, great job to hustle and get that new information in and consolidate it on COVID. I can tell you we're doing a lot of research, and travelers, business travelers especially, they're talking about needing information up to date. Where do we get that? In a consolidated space to get that new information you're bringing together, it's a brave endeavor and a lot of work. So good job on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nate. Well done. Way to kick us off. Next up, we have Amir from CityGuyd.
Hi, everybody.
Take us off.
So let's get right back into it. We are CityGuyd. CityGuyd is a new mobile smartphone application that brings new advancements in augmented reality technologies directly to the travel market in a new and not fun manner. We augment real-life tour guides on the grounds of tourist attractions across the globe. So who are we? Well, we're a team of travel professionals and AR engineers who just happen to love both ideas. The idea initially developed on a trip abroad. One morning, I woke up with some friends early to go hike up to an ancient mountain fortress. And when we got to the top, we realized there was no one around to tell us about the structures we were looking at. I thought to myself, why isn't there an app similar to Pokemon Go, where through my phone screen, a tour guide pops up in front of us to tell us what it is we're seeing? So we got to work. The problem is travelers need access to information. Well, one way of getting that information is carrying around a travel book, but that's a little clunky. You can listen to an audio tour, but we feel like that's a little dull. You can hire a private tour guide, but that's expensive. That leaves us with the kind of do-it-yourself method, which is the one I've always enjoyed personally. But to do that effectively, you need multiple different apps, right? TripAdvisor for recommendation, Google Maps for navigation, and then websites and travel blogs for actual information when you're on site. That's just not effective. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is CityGuyd. CityGuyd is a face-to-face tour guide experience that's always right in your own pocket. That means it's always accessible and it's always affordable. But more than that, it's just a fun way to travel. Initial feedback we got in our trial in Washington, D.C. showed that travelers loved seeing our augmented reality Abraham Lincoln tour guide pop up at the Lincoln Memorial and tell them everything they need to know about the site. We want to see our users snapping photos with the AR tour guides and uploading to social media. So why now? Well, augmented reality is currently changing the way the world interacts with information. All the major tech companies right now are investing heavily in both mobile AR technologies as well as AR glasses. In the next few years, every major industry is going to be impacted by this technological change, and the travel industry is no different. We believe that any industry that fails to accommodate this kind of technological change will be left behind. So it's very important to bring AR to the travel market right now. It's the perfect time. Pokemon Go proved that when you bring the novelty of AR to a market with an established fan base, like Pokemon, you have a recipe for success. Well, at CityGuyd, we think travel is an even bigger fan base than Pokemon, and it's ripe to be the next big AR app. We need to work on CityGuyd today so that when AR matures and those AR glasses become widespread, we're ready to integrate on those platforms day one. So CityGuyd is first to market with initial market validation as well as positive feedback from initial users. The current travel crisis lands us in a unique spot to take advantage of the downtime in the travel industry to expand our content so that when the world is ready to travel again, our AR tour guides are available in as many different international cities as possible. Again, don't need to tell you guys this. This is a huge global market, which means there's room for many players. We have a unique team of both AR engineers and travel professionals. And lastly, at CityGuyd, we're not just building an app. We're building a community of international tour guides, right? This helps us crowdsource our content so that we can scale on a quick pace. Because let's be real, who knows local cities better than the local tour guides? This is our business model. It currently relies on 3 points. First, local-based advertisements. Second, selling country packages, which include all AR tour guides and points of interest in one specific package. And then CityGuyd is also a studio which can create custom AR tour guide content for any company that sees the need, such as a tourism board, a museum, a large conference, etc. This is our roadmap. We're currently in our phase 2. Soon we'll be entering our phase 3, which incorporates our AR tour guide concept indoors for events such as conferences. After that, we'll be incorporating even more advanced augmented reality technologies and of course, deploying on AR glasses. This is our team. Again, I'm tech lead at CityGuyd. I worked as an AR/VR prototype engineer helping build those nerdy future augmented reality glasses that hopefully one day you'll all be wearing. My co-founder is Pauline Fetter. She's a travel industry professional with over 20 years experience in the business. And our development team is currently nicknamed MLX Labs. We're a group of engineers with over a collective 70 years in the AR industry. So to summarize, guys, imagine all the knowledge of a travel book combined with the charm of a real-life tour guide, all in the simplicity of one app. CityGuyd is the 21st century way of travel. We're currently raising capital, so if there's anyone in the audience that is interested in more information about that, definitely get in touch with us and we'll open it up to some questions.
Perfect timing. Thanks, Noor. If ever there was a time for AR and VR, I think we're probably in it now. So I'm anxious to hear what the dragons think.
I agree.
Who wants to go first?
Don't be
All
shy.
right, I'll dive in then. So one of the biggest challenges of your business is that it will be hard to be relevant until you're big, right? So how do you overcome that challenge? Is it through raising a ton of money? Is it through some sort of scalable way to create global content? Well, what's your plan to just reach escape velocity with the business?
Sure. So there's two parts to that answer, right? One is we start small. So we're currently working with certain ministries of tourism, government agencies to start here locally in the States to kind of build custom packages that they think are relevant at the time. So we're starting small in local cities. Second is we're taking advantage of this real crisis that's going on right now. There are so many tour guides that are out of a job right now and need help and need something to do. So we've been reaching out to them, and we're creating a network where they can get in front of a green screen studio and send us tour guide videos of their own cities because they know them the best. And then we just aggregate that data and put it on our platform. So that's
that, I mean, that sounds a little bit like theory as opposed, I mean, not very many people are within a couple blocks of a green screen studio, right? So how,
right.
What's the real tactical plan?
So we're working on those logistics with some partners that are in local cities and kind of trying to work that out for them so they don't need it. So whether that's sending them a green screen and just having them film and send us the videos, or getting them into a studio, we're working with partners to do that. So.
Got it.
One of my questions, Nora, following up from your presentation, is really looking at the cost base, right? So kind of it builds off of Chris's question on sort of like the minimum viable volume of content. How are you thinking, how many uses do you project that you need to get? How many downloads or payments before you can break even on the content and the tours that you have to put together?
That's a good question. So what we're focusing on now is the kind of the global aspect of it is kind of on the back end. We're currently always making more content and adding more content, but what we're focusing on right now is with partnerships, right? So we've been talking with local conferences to bring in our AR tour guide concept indoors. So you have a kind of master of ceremonies, the CEO of the conference welcoming you at the event, welcoming attendees. So we're working on those kind of events now first while we build that larger content, because you guys are right, you have to have a certain amount of content for people to want to use the app. So we're trying to make it relevant on a small scale, whether that be an event, maybe a city, or working with ministries of tourism. Like in Israel, we're building an entire country package. Since it's such a small country, we really believe that that could be a good kind of use case, a test case really for our app. So we're focusing on those partnerships really in the short term.
Okay, thanks.
So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the other B2B examples? Obviously you're hitting contactless, which we all love to hear, contactless touring. You just have to get somewhere in order to be able to do such a thing, which is a tiny problem at the moment. But what are some of the other applications you see for this? Is it airports? Is it museums? Is it universities? What is it?
In 10 seconds.
A welcome video at an airport anytime. Museums are huge. We could have inside tour guides at museums, and campus tour campuses or big, large corporation campuses. Those are all things that we're pursuing at the moment.
Thank you very much, Nor.
Thank
Well
you,
done.
guys.
Next up, next innovator, we have Irving Batesh from Scion. Irving, I see you down there.
How you doing? I'm going to share.
Launch into your screen share. Perfect.
Scion is a web-based commission management software. We track the complete life cycle of an invoice from booking to payment. We all know travel agents are paid by commission. So why is it so hard to get paid? The confusion, time, and cost associated with commissions aren't just annoying. They're costing you, me, and the entire industry money. Something has to change. And we can't just blame suppliers. The problem is a lack of transparency for all parties involved. The client cancels or checks in under a different name. The commission is sent once or twice, or sometimes not at all, and through a consolidator, so no one knows the status. When the money finally arrives 60 or 90 days later, it can't be reconciled because key information is missing. And sadly, this isn't the exception, it's the rule. But Scion is breaking the rules. We've simplified commissions and empowered travel agents to take back control of their business. Not by doing it for them, but by giving them commission tracking software that just works. Our users see everything that happens to every booking every time. We've already integrated with the major GDSs. When we also connect to the supplier's PMS systems, Scion will be what we've all been waiting for, one version of the truth visible to everyone. That means agents, independent contractors, and suppliers communicating seamlessly on a simple, powerful, user-friendly platform. And Scion isn't just simplifying commission tracking. Our vision is to simplify commission processing too. Through strategic partnerships, we're building a payment system that can receive, process, and distribute commissions from suppliers to agencies and their contractors at the click of a button. Here's a look at the current systems. Payment consolidators like Onyx, all the way down to a simple Excel sheet, can help manage symptoms, but they fail to treat the disease. That's why every travel agency we've spoken with over the past 2 years uses 3 or 4 or 5 different systems to manage their receivables, and still they're in the dark. This is what the market landscape looked like prior to COVID. And while the immediate future is unknown, we expect the industry to bounce back like it always has. What we do know is that prior, the industry was never stronger. One positive we've been seeing is the willingness to change. The travel industry has always been pretty slow to adapt to new technology. But one thing we've learned over the past 4 months is that the demand for intuitive technology is stronger than ever. Companies have more time to focus on improving internal processes and are looking for more automation in order to save costs and increase efficiency. Collecting all of your commissions is more important than ever. Scion was in private beta for about a year before we launched in March, right when the country went into lockdown. Since March, we tripled our user base. In 2019, we took part in Virtuoso's incubator program and were the only company to graduate. The incubator was extremely helpful in putting us in front of the right audience and getting the feedback we needed to improve. And now we are managing over $150 million in booking revenue on our system. So how do we make money? First, agency subscriptions. We're making Scion extremely affordable to agencies to capture as large a share of the market as possible. During the COVID pandemic, Scion is 100% free. And as travel resumes, Scion will remain very affordable, anywhere from $50 to $500 a month for most small to mid-sized agencies. Larger agencies will be on enterprise contracts that will depend on their structure and needs. But at Scion, we view subscriptions as our floor. It's a good business, but it's not why we're in business. The second way Scion makes or will make money is through commission processing. Scion will track and process commissions. And that will have the entire booking life cycle transparent to all parties involved. Agents will get their money faster, and suppliers' processing fees will be significantly lower than the industry average. But we're not stopping there. Based on a thorough risk assessment, Scion will offer factoring to qualified travel agencies, meaning that you'll receive your money in days, not months, even before the supplier sends the commission. Scion isn't just simplifying commissions, we're guaranteeing them so that the travel industry can finally have proper, predictable cash flow. We're doing this with a team of creative thinkers and proven leaders from both inside and outside the travel industry. I started Scion personally after owning a travel agency for 9 years and experiencing firsthand how backwards the process is. After trying every software out there, I built Scion for myself, and it helped my agency recoup over $25,000 in unpaid commissions. From there, Scion took on a life of its own. So we're all committed to our vision of empowering our users with the technology they need to be in control of their business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irving. Miriam, you probably know a little bit about some of these back office challenges and commission collection. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, yeah, your presentation is true. It is an issue. It's an issue for large agencies in large ways and smaller agencies in other ways. I guess so I agree with everything you're saying. There's a few other players in there. So I guess, tell us why you over others. And then also maybe talk a little bit about how are you going to take this space to the next level, right? Collecting commissions and tracking them is one thing, but how do you help TMCs or any sellers or agents optimize their commissions and optimize that revenue?
Right. Yeah, so I spoke about that a little bit. Obviously, I didn't go into too much detail, but on our system, we believe that the other systems out there are really focusing on the symptoms of the problem, where it's either, past due commissions or just payment consolidation, where, the industry has been trying to solve this problem for 30, 40 years. But what happens is that it still exists. And what we realize is they're focusing on symptoms, like I said, where the real problem is that lack of transparency, where everyone is on the same page at all times, where when someone makes a booking, you know, in other businesses, if someone owes you money, you know what they owe you, they know what they owe you, and everyone's on the same page. So really the differentiator for us is through technology, having live transparency for everyone involved in that process to be able to know where they're at. So for instance, if I'm an agent and I made a booking for a client and let's say that got canceled or it got changed without my knowing, where if it updated on the hotel's PMS end, where it would update for me too for my receivables. So we really look at ourselves as not necessarily doing what all these other companies do in one, but just doing it differently, which is really bringing everyone on the same page. And I think that's what we think the real key is to solving the problem.
And what are some of the key partnerships that you need to land in the next year to make this, you know, to make this truly launch?
Right.
Do you have to land a couple of big enterprise players? Do you need a bank to back your factoring model? Because it seems that without the payments piece, it's kind of niche-y.
Right. Well, so like I said, there is a sustainable, nice business that has, you know, a ceiling in the $30 to $50 million a year range ARR with subscriptions. But I think it's a combination of things. Initially, our model was to try to get as much of the travel agent market as possible on the system. But I think as we were building it out, we realized that we might need more leverage than that to go to the suppliers. So whether it be partnering with other companies that do have that leverage or having the right large enough agency, I mean, I think that's been a large part of our focus over the past year and a half. Is initially we built it for ourselves and for smaller agencies, and now learning what the bigger agencies needed to realistically adopt our system, and which is what we've been working on, all that automation. So when we're able to land, and we've been in talks with the largest agencies in the world, really, once we close one of those deals, I think that'll help us, you know, with the leverage we need to really make a dent in the processing and factoring end.
Right.
KJ,
Terrific presentation.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thank you very much.
Kieran, I think
Irving.
you're muted, Kieran.
Yeah, we can shift to the next pitch here.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Good.
So, hello, everyone. So, flight delays cost the airline industry $8.2 billion a year. And when a plane arrives and departs at an airport, over 100 processes can attribute to a delay, like the different COVID-19 processes that are happening right now. Radios are used to communicate flight delays at over 40,000 airports worldwide. So let me take you through a typical delay scenario. Let's say the pilot is experiencing a delay issue. They have to communicate to ground operations as well as the gate agent to discuss the actual delay. And then they will communicate to the air traffic control center, which will communicate to the airline's OCC, who would have to communicate to technical operations to possibly fix the plane. So there's a lot of radio communications going back and forth that could last maybe 30 minutes, an hour and a half. So what we do is we analyze all those communications and we make it so that people can find out what's going on 30 minutes or an hour before using our platform. So let me give you 3 different examples of different types of radio communications. Let's say one transcript says heavy Atlanta, number 1006 right. This describes a plane being overweight, and this will delay takeoff for the plane. So typically airline frontline employees switch out different passengers and luggage to reduce a plane size. But with real-time communication, they can see which flight has different problems, switch out people much faster. So let's say a transcript says 4202 is gonna probably be delayed for you. We just got a phone call from the Assen airport. This transcript is from DFW. So all the airlines and airports that are connected to DFW can understand, okay, which people are going to be delayed for which plane, and then they can adjust the runway space as well as account for missing passengers and missing luggage. And let's say a transcript says, do you feel your engine started? Texas 5 is a heavy lift, Juliet Monitor 11, and a point 1, you have been released. This describes the airline typically having an engine failure. When an airline has an engine failure, the customer is owed delay compensation because it is the airline's fault that a flight is delayed. So travel companies can use this information to work with customers to get flight compensation from that delay. So this is the front page of our web application. As you can see in the center, we show the different text of the air traffic control communications as well as the flights to the right. And we use artificial intelligence to analyze different text. Like, let's say there's ice on the runway or the wind is picking up at a certain airport. We can attribute this transcript to a weather delay. So for our sentiment analysis, let's say you want to search through different radio transcripts, or we have a classification system to where we segment delays in different categories, as well as determine the positivity and negativity is talked about within different transcripts. So what differentiates UnDelay from all our competitors is that we have identified key hardware components that allows us to group and segment different radio transcripts in real time. And our technology is scalable so we can monitor radio conversations from hundreds of airports simultaneously and convert that into text. So we have a SaaS business model, so customers can consume our information via API, or they can access our web dashboard to see the different transcripts and AI analysis. So for our current customers, right now we have Source Travel, and we currently work with the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. So our market size is huge. We have about 30 travel companies we believe we can pitch to for this product, over 40,000 airports in the world that could use it, and about 5,000 airlines. So we are raising $500,000 to expand from scanning data from 5 airports to 200. And we need money for devices, storage, AWS, and of course, employee salaries. So this is the team. I have my degree in mechanical engineering, and I've worked as a full stack web developer and mobile developer for Delta Airlines. And my 2 advisors are Ron Taro and Christian Wright. So you can contact me. Feel free to email me, call me, and check out the website if you have any product information. And thank you for listening to my pitch.
Thank you very much, Safir.
No problem.
Let's get the dragons on. Christina, you probably know a little bit about data and sentiment analysis. Why don't you jump in and kick us off?
And a little bit from 3 years at an airline, though I think it takes a lifetime to understand how airlines work. Safir, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting to see what you're working on. You know, you're working with a very unique aspect here in the airline infrastructure, which is looking at the communication between a lot of different entities. And, you know, the risk here is that the security aspect can be pretty significant with this. You know, airlines aren't always incentivized to share why their delays are happening, either from a security perspective or other things that they can share or would rather not. My big question here is twofold. One, who's the customer here? What's the specific value prop that you're looking to sell this on? Because airlines do have systems to classify delays internally, and those are built in to communicate as it is. And then second, this is airlines and particularly communication with air traffic control is a regulated area and has some challenges. So what do you think your management team's experience can bring to that really sets you up to understand the problem and the solution you're building?
Definitely. So for one, all the rail transcripts that I scan are public information. So there are over 30 or maybe 20 or 30 different transcripts that I can scan online right now that's public information. And in terms of that, a lot of delay information is relayed. So in terms of the airlines, they need that data as consumable. So right now, like, as you would see, the airlines have a real time in terms of like once they classify something as a delay, they shoot it to their internal systems in real time, right? But in terms of what's happening within that delay, right, there's a lot of miscommunication in terms of what happens on the ground, or dispatchers have to communicate to maintenance man have to communicate to center operations. There's a lot of miscommunication going on because of lack of information and a centralized way to say, okay, like what's happening for this plane and when did it happen, right? Like what time was this specific conversation talked about? And that's a big gap within that whole. So to answer the first question, all the radio data that I scan is public. So in terms of security, that won't be a problem because anybody could access it. Did I answer the second question, right?
The second question was on the manager experience, right? To
Okay.
what do you think the management team brings to bear to say, airlines, hey, this is a problem and here's how we can help you?
Definitely. So I worked for Delta for 2 years, and also Christian Wright has worked for Delta maybe about 4 or 5 years, and Juan Taro has worked in the travel space for a lot more years than me. So we both spent a lot of time just analyzing the problem, and I've worked on this startup for about 2 years. So I've had a lot of people download the mobile application, try out the web application, and we really dissect different problems that the industry has, and that's how we've came up with this solution.
Is it a partner you're maybe looking at that can help take some of the information that you're gathering, right? The analysis you're doing on these radio transmissions, and the kind of partner that can put in place solutions, right, based on the intel that's gathered from those things. I wonder if you're looking at partnerships to bring a full suite of services of some kind to the table rather than just structured data.
Definitely. So I want to my first target is different travel companies that work hand in hand with passengers. So they have teams of lawyers that really work with passengers to say, okay, from different situations, how can we get your money back or a certain amount of money back from different delay conversations? So those agencies, right now I can't name them off the head, but I've written maybe about 10 of them down. So it'd be great to partner them for like in terms of partnerships, but also customers. I want to sell the application to them as well. So more of customers than partnerships, but definitely I would like to partner with them to ultimately feed this information to customers as fast as possible, and then move towards airports and airlines.
Great. Thank you very much, Safir.
Cool.
Well done.
So,
next up, we have Felix Said from myHotel, CEO of myHotel. Felix, looks like you're sharing your screen already, which is a good start. So why don't you take us through your pitch?
Perfect. Hello to everyone. So hotels today face multiple interaction points at 3 main stages: pre, during, and post-stay. They receive infinite requests and complaints through these stages. But we have to separate the important versus urgent. Online reputation is unactionable, is damage control, and is highly skewed. You have really good reviews and really bad reviews. But it's overrated by hoteliers because it's urgent for them. There's a famous study about Chris Anderson about price elasticity, that you can raise prices by 10% without losing demand if you have 1 point more in TripAdvisor. Yeah, online reputation is important, but it's the tip of the iceberg. You have to tackle the problem before it happens. The other 80% of the feedback is run under a semi-automatic process that gives you outdated feedback. The consequence is that you take actions under an incomplete, outdated, and skewed data. The consequences, under the study of Chris Anderson for 100-room hotels, is losing more than $1 million in lost revenue. And the consequence of having a semi-automatic process for the other 80% of the feedback is like racing with crutches. You're always late, you don't engage, so you lose your business to the OTAs, and the time you invested in gathering and processing all that feedback means zero return. So in myHotel, we solve a nasty problem faster and cheaper than anybody. We provide a fully integrated omni-channel customer experience platform for any hotel. We are like a mix of a SurveyMonkey with Zendesk, but specifically integrated and customized for the hospitality industry. So we cover every stage. In 3 years, we have developed 5 products for gathering and processing feedback at any given time. In every touch point, we provide satisfaction surveys for tablets, emails, Wi-Fi, web links, so you can measure everything inside the organization. And it's for everybody inside the organization. So not everybody understands financial metrics, but inside the hospitality industry, they understand reputational metrics. So you can align your whole team in one key metric. We filter all that insight with our algorithms that process the information, not only classifying into good or bad reviews, but classifying into areas so they can attend those needs of the guests. We provide this simple web platform that is deployed in minutes, and it's integrated in only minutes as well. We have had a positive impact in the online reputation, in customer experience, and in revenue. Our hotels have climbed up to 100 positions. They increased their revenue volume by 4 times. They consistently increase their net promoter score, and they are able to engage with 3 times more guests. Our business model is a SaaS B2B with a monthly recurrent fee. We charge based on the amounts of rooms and the average daily rate. We have a low churn, and we double our growth every year. We have from the biggest regional brands to international brands and small independent hotels. Everybody can use myHotel. We are the absolute customer experience leaders in Latin America with $1.3 million in annual recurring revenue, with 1,000 hotels in 22 countries. All this, we have done it with an amazing team of only 14 people. And with committed founders like Sebastian, that is a serial entrepreneur and is in charge of the company growth. Me, I'm the numbers geek, and I have done AI modeling for listed companies here in Chile. I'm the CEO. Matthias is the computer science genius that has developed all this platform by himself the first 2 years, and now he runs a team of 3. Our wise man of the hospitality industry, Javier Gonzalez, that has invested in the tough times of coronavirus in us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felix. Well done. Kurian, you probably know a little bit about hotels, hotel technology. Maybe you can jump in here.
I love Chris, what he's saying on that one. I'm sorry for taking your time, but I think I'll just focus on, you said 1.3 million across 1,000 hotels. That's $1,300 a hotel, $100 a month. How are you going to get to such a fragmentation with such a low revenue coming in from each hotel?
So what we basically do is that our average ticket of $120 is, it's basically with one of our modules. We have 5 modules. So we, in markets that are more mature, we are able to sell more products to them and charge $200 or $300 a month.
Yeah, no, but I use your metric of you had 1.3 million and you had 1,000 hotels. And that's the number I use. So, which means you are at $130, $1,300 per hotel. So if you're selling for 300 at 300 or 400, that's not there in the number that you said. That's what I use. So.
No, of course. So we are doing the upselling to the other products because we sell our solution in modules.
Right. My question was, it's such a small dollar amount that how do you get to that? How you have to keep your cost of customer acquisition very, very low, right?
It is very low. We are able to offer free trials as well. And we keep it very low in terms of the team that we already have to attend those 1,000 customers.
Right. And you have a go-to-market strategy that is different to keep, it's not sales, regular sales, but is it online? What do you do to that? How do you get it out there?
Everything online and remotely. And yeah, we do basically online marketing. And the thing is that we reduce a lot of costs in the adoption. So it's very easy to implement the solution. So that's where we save a lot of costs, and it's really easy to implement and cost effective. Our gross margin is like 90%.
So it's a total inside sales operation, inbound, some outbound work, and then right. So what about the data? I mean, I imagine there's a lot of sort of publicly accessible data sources that are easy, but what about the ones that are specific to each property? Or do you not engage in sort of on-property surveys and that kind of deep data?
We engage, that's our main differentiator, that we integrate faster to all these channels. So we integrate to the Wi-Fi, we integrate to the PMS, and we have all that data, and we process it, we classify it, and we show benchmarks to the hotels. So for example, even though every hotel has its own satisfaction survey, we classified all that data into categories, and then we show them their results so they can compare with the industry with similar hotels of the same size or the same type of travel.
Interesting. Okay, and then the 3% churn that you have, is that typically just hotels closing, management teams changing over, flags leaving, or are you seeing other competitors trying to eat at your business?
We see other competitors, but mainly change of control. When a big international company acquires, for example, Wyndham acquired like 300 hotels in Latin America recently, and they come with their own system. So we need a partner to get to those corporative departments and be able to sell our solution globally to those bigger chains. But mainly, we lose clients to the bigger chains that they have Qualtrics or Medallia or systems that are much more expensive, but they come from the corporate decision.
Got it.
Great. Thank you very much, Felix. Well done. 5 down, 2 to go. Next up, we've got Samela Watson from Sebaya. And unmute yourself, and now you're good to go.
And there we go. I can remember a time where, let's do this. There we go. I can remember working at the front desk of a hotel and being able to greet my guests with a warm handshake or even a friendly hug if they were regulars. And now that we know, thanks to COVID, those days are long behind us. And as property managers begin to reopen their doors, it's up to us to recreate and reimagine what welcoming guests look like. So once I talk to property managers, I'm oftentimes told 3 main concerns. The first is, what does welcoming a guest actually look like post-COVID? And how do we eliminate some of the more old processes that's being used or that was okay with being used? And then how do we ensure that these experiences are authentic? And I'm here with good news, and that is Sebiya. We are a guest experience system, and we designed our software to partner with short-term vacation rental property managers. And what we want to do is help them reduce the touch points along the traveler's stay. Now, we know that technology will never replace the human touch. Again, that's not our goal. Our goal is to stay focused on reducing these touch points. Our system is built in 3 parts. We have a guest app, a staff app, and a dashboard. And these platforms allow property managers to benefit by having their own customized system and being able to have their guests have contactless solutions from the comfort of their own devices. We believe that technology should not only streamline the process, but always focus on enhancing things along the way. And for us, that's the guest experience. You may ask yourself, why now? But thanks to COVID, Sebiya has become less of a nice to have software and more of a must need, a must solution. And we want to help our partners host more travelers with less manpower, always exceed their guest expectations, and go above and beyond with digital options, while allowing them to compete, because we know that the short-term rental market has a bunch of competitors popping up, and we want to give them the power of technology. As mentioned before, we were already building our software and having something created prior to COVID, but now we've become that much more important. And so we are looking to launch in private beta with 3 paying customers who are excited to use our technology once they begin welcoming their guests. And what we'll do with this private beta is collect data, ensure that we are building something that our future customers will love, and being able to adhere to this new set of travel norms. Planning for October 20th, we want to do a public launch, which for us means being in 100 units. And we want to tap into that underserved markets, and one of them we believe is the Caribbean. We make money from property managers, so we are a B2B SaaS subscription model, and we will charge them per unit per month an example is $15 per unit per month, and we're hoping to capture at least 7% of that managed unit market, which can put us at a projected revenue of 11.7 million should that happen. In 2018, the short-term rental market managed to spend $15.5 billion on software alone. What we want to do is we believe that that's going to increase by 11%. There are others doing it, but right now we know that there is no leader in the market and there is massive untapped space. So we definitely want to come in as a leader. My team, my CEO and I have a combined 25 years of hospitality experience and excited to tackle this market. We are raising $750,000, which will give us 18 months runway, help us get to a recurring revenue of 15K, and have a team of 5 to continue to build this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Samela. Well done. Chris, you've invested in some short-term rental startups, and contactless is certainly an issue there potentially. You want to jump in?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. First of all, great presentation. I think you organized the critical points very, very well, and you touched on them in a super succinct way. So, off to the races with a terrific presentation and an incredibly timely, very relevant value proposition. So I saw that you had contactless key entry in there as a key point of differentiation against the competitors. Is that a core module that you guys have written, or are you partnering with a hardware provider? And I think that, that sort of extends to, a question about the platform itself. Are you selling an infrastructure to PMs that they then use to plug into their various services, or are you bundling certain types of products and services with the package?
So we are, first to start, we're a bootstrap company. So we have not fully integrated to any of the large players, but that is a very important goal of ours to create those relationships. And hardware is one of our first goals, so that the customer can now access their unit via the power of our mobile app and kind of create this cohesive experience. So it would be more like a plug-in situation with other leaders who's doing those things.
Makes sense. And then is your intent to approach property managers who currently have no mobile solution, or are you looking to displace other competitors that are currently installed?
Well, to be very honest with you, I'm looking at that 40% of the property managers who are like 20 units or less, and they're struggling to fight against the competition because they have not migrated to technology. So I'm looking for people who do not have technology and who know that it's extremely important at this time.
Great. I think that's right. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can keep going.
I'm like, any other questions?
There's no one else.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
Tell us a little more about the go-to-market strategy, right? The unit economics and the small size of the PMs will challenge a direct sales force when you think about cost to acquire versus lifetime value. So can you talk a little bit about how you hope to at least get started, and then what your growth phase will look like from a sales and marketing perspective?
Sure. So while we're focusing on vacation rental property managers, I have gotten knocks on doors from boutique hotels. And of course, that opens up larger room sizes, more units to be in. And so I'm definitely happy to accept them as customers. But right now, the private beta, we do want to focus on collecting data, but also build a brand awareness campaign while in private beta, so that we can encourage more property managers or even educate them on why now they need the technology.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Samela. Well done.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Brett Ziegler from Trip Ninja. Brett, I see you're sharing, which is great. There's your video. Unmute yourself and you're good to go.
Thank you. So since 2015, TripNinja has been automating complex processes traditionally completed by travel agents. We help agency owners increase revenues and productivity per agent by leveraging process automation and machine learning. TripNinja is the IKEA for travel apps. We believe in a future where all agency owners, regardless of their geography, product mix, or capital investment, should have access to modular products that, when used incrementally, help them drive revenue, but when used together, help them power the agency of the future. We focus on automating and productizing high complexity flight booking tasks to improve travel agent efficiency. Of course, travel agencies have been creating complex itineraries for decades, but they're relying on cumbersome legacy booking systems and require great senior agents to uncover great fares. Unfortunately, great agents are not scalable, and that's not good because roughly 50% of all travel bookings are still done by travel agents. Compounding the problem is that bookings are getting more and more complicated. Airlines are fragmenting fare classes, ancillaries are becoming more diverse, and LCCs are in turmoil. Major airlines are pulling out of GDSs, which is something that was once unthinkable, and NDC continues to loom large. Junior agents at the start of their careers need to become revenue drivers quickly, but they don't have ramp time. The problem for all agents is that shopping for the best airfare requires platform switching on tools that look like this. That's the problem, and here's how we're solving it. We've distilled decades of agent behavior, insider tips, and best practices into our product stack, helping agencies find better airfare, build trust, and lead the recovery. Welcome to the TripNinja Product Cloud, which is composed of QuickTrip, our agent platform, and our modular marketplace. Far from being yet another smart itinerary builder, QuickTrip was built to empower agent decision-making capabilities and ancillary upsell opportunities. QuickTrip provides agents with intelligent recommendations and more information throughout the booking flow. On QuickTrip, we pull all flight content sources into one place and then check them all with a single search, so agents don't waste valuable time switching between platforms. The modular marketplace provides E2E booking modules, which replicate the experience of senior agents using machine learning, and they're selected by users as add-ons to extend the functionality of QuickTrip. Our modules can be used on or off platform, individually, or stacked upon one another. For example, our fare structure module programmatically splits a multi-city itinerary into the constituent one-way and open jaw pieces, and then mixes and matches across airline alliances and content sources to maximize cost savings. The fare structure module can then be paired with the FlexTrip module so agents can make even better multi-city configurations, this time by surfacing alternate orders of destination to best meet customers' budgets and preferences. Content and how we get access to it is changing rapidly. The transition towards NDC and direct connections is coming, but it's difficult for small agencies to access because of the complexity of implementation. TripNinja is working to support these connections to ensure that small agencies can access next generation content and ancillaries, and the providers can capture these revenue streams efficiently. We sit between great agents and the myriad ways they can access fares for their clients. We've designed our products to be content agnostic. We use your data sources like consolidators, GDSs, LCC aggregators, and NDC providers so that all bookings count towards your airline incentives. The TripNinja advantage is clear in this benchmarking test where we looked at the GDS search results for 300 multi-city itineraries versus what the fare structure and FlexTrip modules could find using identical data sources. We consistently beat their prices by upwards of 80%, and our queries take 20 seconds rather than the 20 minutes it would take an agent to do similar queries. We charge our customers a tiered SaaS fee based on the number of monthly active users, as well as charging for add-ons like premium data sources and specialized services. We're aware that we're not alone, and some of the companies we consider competitors in our space include Dolphin Dynamics or Eero. We are proud of our traction to date, having gone live with 2 OTAs and a consolidator, and arranging half a dozen pilots with both large and small offline agencies. This is a large market in which to sell, grow, and iterate. There's approximately 600,000 offline travel agencies worldwide, and an average agency constitutes a revenue opportunity of about $30,000 annually. This leads to a $17 billion market size. Today, we're raising a seed round of $1.2 million. We have a small but strong team of engineers and product developers, and we've secured a lead investor with about 45% of the round closed, and we're looking to close the balance in the next 60 days. We believe that the travel agencies that will thrive and rebound will be those that leverage the knowledge of experienced agents at scale. The only way to do this with speed and accuracy is through technology. TripNinja is here to help you create the travel agency of the future by increasing your agent efficiency. Thank thank you for listening today. We are Trip Ninja and would love to speak with you about investment or bringing us into your company.
Thank you very much, Brett. Miriam, this one sounds like it might go into your neighborhood.
Yeah, you know, and just a little inside information. So I met you a while ago, Brett, and the pitch you gave 6 months ago was so different than this pitch I just saw right now, and I'm just so impressed with, like, my hair was standing on end. Anyway, so you kind of glossed over in like 2 seconds the concept of you basically automating international rate desks for travel agencies. These are the most skilled, the most expensive agents that can spend 2 hours, 4 hours working on a complex international itinerary, what we call creative ticketing. Talk to me about what this TMC partnerships and pilots, what are they attracted to? Like, what are these things that they're looking to implement?
So to kind of answer this, in terms of how we've changed, we realized a little while ago, actually prior to COVID, that we weren't really multi-city guys so much as complexity folks. And so what we're really looking at, especially with regards to the IRD, the International Rate Desk, is these are, as Miriam mentioned, they're very senior agents, very experienced, very expensive agents. And what we look to do in that situation is use our algorithms, use our technology to take some of that work off of their plate and free them up to do other high value work. So if we can take this work of very senior, very expensive agents, productize it, make it a commodity, and then free them up to do the stuff that helps them pursue higher value work and make more money, especially in a time when people are going to have to do more with less. People aren't going to be coming back after being furloughed, for example. That's what's really, really interesting to us. And that's what we think is a really strong opportunity, especially in the TMC case.
Can you take a couple seconds to tell us about your management team, especially domain experts at the senior level? Because I don't think that was in the deck, unless I missed it.
No, I kind of went through that one a little bit quickly. So we are led by a team of engineers. We actually came in as industry outsiders. We didn't really know anything about the travel industry, and anyone who's seen us at conferences over the last couple of years know we've kind of stumbled on every coffee table imaginable until we learned about the industry and got a little more knowledge on how to solve these domain-specific problems. So we feel very confident on the technology side, and what we've done even fairly recently is realize that there's a lot of great minds out there. So we started building a management advisory team of folks who are very experienced in the industry, especially here in Canada, as well as some informal relationships with folks throughout the States. But our management team is myself and our CEO, Andreas Coyart, who I'm sure you might have seen at Plug and Play when we were part of that cohort, and throughout other pitches at Phocuswright and other places.
So your main focus is just breaking down the multi-itinerary concept, and is that what it is?
No, so that was originally where we started, and that is obviously a big part of our business, and we have no plans to shelf that at any point. Really, what we've just chosen to do is refocus and try and provide that level of thinking and technology to travel agents at all levels. It exists for those who want to use it. They don't want to use the platform. We say, hey, here's the API docs, go knock yourself out, add it to your OTA platform. But really, we're focusing on solving complexity for travel agents and then productizing that and making that available across the industry.
Got it.
Great. Thank you very much, Brett. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes our 7 pitches. So thanks a lot, Dragons. You added a ton of value to that process. So I'd also like to thank the innovators that pitched today. So OccassionGenius, CityGuyd, Scion, UnDelay, myHotel, Sebaya, and Trip Ninja. So the judges and Dragons are voting or have voted. We will reveal the winner at the end. We're going to transition over to the People's Choice vote now. So hopefully the audience has listened to both the innovators and the Dragons, and now is your chance to vote for your favorite startup. So we'll leave this up for 15 to 20 seconds, and we'll announce the winner of the judges' choice as well as the People's Choice at the end of the session. So great. So now we're going to transition over to the content section. We've got a panel and a keynote, and I'm going to hand it off here to my colleague, Mike Coletta, who's going to introduce the Crisis and Opportunity Panel, Perspectives on Early Stage Investing and Executing in Travel during this exhausting time. So Mike, why don't you introduce our panelists here and kick us off with the content session.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, and thanks to all the innovators. Really nice job to everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed the presentation so far. And thanks to our panelists for joining us today to discuss their perspectives on investing and executing in travel in a time of crisis. We have a nice balance of investors and operators on the panel today. And I'll start with some quick introductions. So we have Amir Amidi, Managing Partner of Travel and Hospitality at Plug and Play, a travel accelerator program and investment firm. Katherine Grass, CEO of Optii, which helps hotels optimize their operations. And she's also a venture partner at Thayer Ventures, which focuses on early stage investments in travel. So she's on both the operator and investor sides. Cheraé Robinson, CEO of Tastemakers Africa, an experience platform focused on Africa. And Saniya Shah, co-founder and CEO at Pilota, a flight disruption management startup. Just a quick reminder to the panelists to try to keep your answers fairly succinct, since 35 minutes isn't all that much time for 4 panelists to share their thoughts on a variety of topics. And per the title of this panel, we want to hear your perspectives on the current crises, how you're looking for silver linings and opportunities. These are challenging times for practically everyone in travel, unless you're in the business of sterilizing airplane seats, perhaps. And we did have a startup that did exactly that at Battleground a few years ago. We've been meaning to check in with. But let's start by talking about challenges. So my first question is, what are the biggest challenges each of you have faced during the COVID-19 crisis? And what have you done to adapt? And feel free to work in a little bit more detail about what you do in your answer to this first question. And Saniya, let's start with you. I'd like to hear specifically about your experience as a B2B startup, working with partners. And then we'll go to Cheraé and hear about her experience on the consumer side. So Saniya, biggest challenges you've faced and what you've done to adapt.
Sure. So before the COVID crisis, when a traveler got to the airport, one of their biggest concerns was, is my flight going to get disrupted? But now, as the market has shifted a little bit, yes, travelers are still concerned about their flight being disrupted, but there are also pressing concerns about the health and safety factors that apply to their flight or their journey. And so we saw this, and we want our product to be as relevant as possible to the current market. And so that's why we worked on launching a new product called FlySafe, and it's actually coming out next week. It'll be available on the Chrome store, and it allows travelers to compare flights and itineraries based on the disruption, health, and safety factors that matter most to them. Because we saw that there are new needs that are being presented in this new market, and our challenge is making sure that we're as relevant as possible for this new market.
Great, thank you. And Cheraé, your biggest challenges at Tastemakers, besides your total collapse of demand and what you've done to adapt as a consumer brand?
Through pre-COVID, Tastemakers was solving 2 problems. We were solving a lack of differentiated and interesting product on the African continent for today's traveler, a market that was largely focused on safaris while people were looking for more. And then we were also solving a problem on the demand side for a lack of authentic opportunities to explore the African continent, specifically for travelers who consider themselves Black or members of the African diaspora. COVID struck both of those audiences in a major way. African borders are still largely closed, and African Americans and African diaspora and travelers were, from a public health perspective, hit hardest by COVID, both from a health outcomes perspective, but also financially. And so we had to figure out, like, who are we supposed to be in this situation? And what we were able to do was lean into community. Tastemakers grew organically before we even built our first product. We built a community first, and that community ended up being our secret sauce during COVID. So we ended up pausing on all travel-related communications and decided that we would be the convener for these communities that wanted to connect. We created a virtual conference series within 10 days of borders closing called The Thread. The first one gathered 1,400 people. We subsequently have gathered more than 6,000 people for 8-hour-long sessions, really exploring how to connect Africa and its diaspora, not through travel, but through business, through opportunity, through healing, through spirituality. And we really just held and created a space that didn't exist for this community, who subsequently then returned to us and said, well, how can we get there? And so from that, we realized that we had a huge opportunity to engage our audience, who was ecstatic about our brand pre-COVID, but only had one way to engage, which was by taking a trip. So we decided to launch a membership program to really allow us to be lockstep with this community every day. It is in super stealth right now, but we're beginning to open it up, and the initial stages of that community have been really exciting.
Great, good to hear. And Amir, about the challenges you've seen in running your program, and maybe some of the challenges you've seen within the broad plug-and-play travel portfolio?
Yeah, I would say, you know, this thing hit us so fast and so quickly that it was nearly impossible to prepare for. I would say the biggest challenge internally at Plug and Play, especially for the travel and hospitality practice, as you know, we're active across 16 different industries. One of them is travel and hospitality. But internally, I would say keeping our team motivated and helping them stay focused and not give up completely on everything we had accomplished since 2016. For me personally, that was the biggest focus. And I'm happy to report that the team members are doing well and waking up every morning and trying to be there for the startup community and the corporate partners we have. And then the second thing was really, we were such a high touch business with our corporate partners and startups, with all the in-person events that we hosted during a typical calendar year. Moving everything online and doing things virtually was a learning experience for us. And I would say doing everything virtually has some positive aspects, and although it doesn't replace in-person and face-to-face interactions. So we had to learn fairly quickly on how we could move all of our events online. And I'm happy to report that we haven't canceled a single event since we were ordered to shelter in place in Northern California. And then ultimately, you know, there's two sides to our business. One side is the startups that go through our accelerator program or we invest in through our venture arm. And the other side is the corporate partners that we work with. We work with about 40 suppliers and service providers in the travel industry, airlines, hospitality brands, TMCs, travel agencies like Flight Center, airports, and really seeing these folks, be it startups or corporations in the travel industry, go through the hardship of waking up one day and literally seeing their businesses dry up at no fault of their own, was extremely challenging for us. I would say both on an emotional level as well as a professional level. Obviously, the somewhat of a good news is I think we've bottomed out. If there's no second outbreak here, which chances are there may be with the signals we're getting, but there's a sense of optimism that things are improving and we've bottomed out already. So it's heartening to see that people's sense of optimism is growing in recent weeks to a certain degree, but everybody's obviously keeping an eye on what happened in Beijing with the second outbreak and crossing fingers the same thing won't happen in their local markets.
Yeah, I think you hit on a few things that a lot of us are seeing as challenges and thinking about for the future too. And Katherine, it'd be great to hear your perspective from running a more mature company as well as an investor. I think you're still actively doing both.
Yes.
Yeah. More on the Optii side.
Sure, absolutely. You know, from Optii's side, it's been an absolute challenge and also an opportunity, really. And Optii being a IT solution and efficiency solution for hotels. You know, on one side, you know, hotels, many are either closed or struggling with single digit or low double digit occupancy. So the challenge there has been trying to work with our customers, changing our business model a little bit and getting through this together. And on the flip side, you know, Optii being an efficiency solution, we're absolutely tackling the problem of labor optimization and helping hotels save costs on labor. And the work we do around housekeeping, which is all about cleaning protocols, auditing and reporting. I mean, all of a sudden now, you would have never guessed cleaning would be in the press and in media as much as it is. So now the solution becomes even more critical for the hotels. And so the opportunity and challenge has been in continuing to evolve our platform, making sure, you know, we've been adding features and functions, you know, as we speak, to be able to audit cleaning protocols, make sure people are safe. You know, all these different cleaning protocols are being announced, can be adapted and executed and tracked and traced. And so it's been that twofold challenge of trying to accelerate the product to meet the current demands within this new normal of cleaning and efficiency, and at the same time serving a customer segment that is just absolutely crippled.
Yeah. How about as an investor? Any thoughts from that perspective?
Yeah, you know, as an investor, you know, I think the fundamental principles still remain the same, right? It's about how to, the good companies, you know, are having to pivot and to adapt. For sure, we're at a different moment where companies are buckling down and trying to get to the other side of this. And as an investor, it's been a bit more of a pivot to ensure that the portfolio companies that you know, we do have are as successful as possible and are helped through this, and we see this out the other side. And at the same time, that all of them are addressing the concerns in the short term, but also ensuring that the longevity is absolutely still there as well.
Okay. Yeah, so you're talking a little bit about you know, thinking about a recovery, working towards that. And my next question plays into that. You know, from the depths of the market crash in March and April, we've seen a slow but steady rebound, maybe in more areas, some areas more than others, like short-term rentals seem to be bouncing back pretty decently for now, at least. You know, the future concerning COVID is pretty dependent on what happens with the virus and how our leaders respond. But in terms of the recovery that seems to be happening, for each of you, what are you kind of hearing and seeing in the areas of the industry that you're focused on? What are the signals of you know, recovery, tangible signals that you're seeing, or otherwise? And anyone feel free to jump in.
I can chime in first, if it's okay, Mike, and with the panelists. So I think this summer will be a great indicator of where we're headed and how fast we're going to come out of this thing, with leisure travel taking place this summer. As most of you know, I think as far as the airlines are concerned, there's an uptick for summer travel, and the cancellation rates are reducing, which is a great sign. Obviously, with travel restrictions now, EU saying maybe they're not going to welcome Americans this summer, that's going to be a big dent. But I think summer months are going to be critical in seeing what kind of appetite exists in the market, be it local travel or long distance travel. And I think local travel will be dominant. I think there are few people that are willing to get on a plane, even though the plane tends to be a very safe environment with the HEPA filters. But I don't think the world is ready necessarily to get on a plane and sit on a plane for 12, 13 hours and fly around the world. So I think domestic, 100 mile, 200 mile radius travel is possible. And I think hospitality brands obviously will benefit from that in the coming months, and short-term rentals and vacation rentals will benefit from that. Again, what keeps me up at night is the second wave. You know, I know there was an outbreak in Beijing, but Beijing is a very different environment than US. I mean, here we are sitting arguing about whether we should wear masks or not, as a few states' cases are growing rapidly. Whereas in China, you know, when the government says you need to wear masks, everybody listens. So if we do have a second wave in US, I think the impact will be much, much worse. And it's going to take us much, much longer to go through the recovery phase. That is my biggest worry. But if we kind of continue on this similar path, I think you're going to see incremental improvement in the coming months. And for me, the holy grail is going to be some kind of a treatment that could turn this thing into a common flu that would make people feel more comfortable and that takes out the worst case scenario out of their heads. And then obviously the availability of a vaccine and mass distribution of that vaccine, I think that's going to be the biggest stimulus to the travel industry.
Yeah, still so many unknowns. But how about Saniya for the air segment, Katherine in hotels, Cheraé in experiences, and again, somewhat quickly, we only have 20 minutes left. I have so much more I want to talk about. You know, what are you seeing there in terms of any kind of recovery that may look sustainable or not?
Yeah, so on the air perspective, we're definitely seeing more leisure travelers feel comfortable flying again. But I think what's interesting is because airlines have limited their schedules and there's such irregular operations happening at the airports and with these airlines, we're seeing a crazy number of last minute cancellations. So people who do want to fly are having trouble getting on a plane and actually flying to their destination, or they're having to take complicated multi-leg flights to get to their destination. And because of all of the irregular schedules, they're having crazy amounts of layovers. So it's interesting because now we're starting to see people get back on planes, but they're having difficulty getting to where they need to be.
Mm-hmm. Katherine?
Yeah, and in the hotel, you know, after they get on that plane, if they can get on that plane and get to the hotel, you know, there's a few challenges. One is depending on where they're coming from, you know, more states are putting in a quarantine. So that's one challenge. I think we're starting to see the recovery and we'll start to see the recovery first in this kind of drive and stay concept. So the shorter radius of where people are going to, and especially over the summer. And then it's really a look at what, with all the regions, and even though we're in the US, really think globally in terms of opportunity and business, I think we're really starting to need to understand the strength of each region's domestic travel market, because, you know, borders are going to start to be closed off much longer. So if you operate in Europe, is your European, and I call the EU kind of as a domestic travel market where they can travel amongst the countries in Europe, is that traveler and that market share big enough for you to have a business? You know, what would the hotel occupancies be if just domestic Europeans are traveling around Europe? What would be the hotel occupancy in the US if it's just domestic travel, or in Asia, because these cross-border corridors are not going to be open for some time. So looking at that strength of your domestic market and what type of customer will be strong in a domestic market, like a big international hotel that thrives on big events and conferences, is not going to recover as fast as maybe the 3, 4, 5-star hotel that serves that domestic drive and stay traveler.
Mm-hmm. And Cheraé?
We're seeing our experiences marketplace sort of continue to flatline. So because that is sort of that last part of travel, it's taking longer for that part of travel to rebound. Our group travel business, we're seeing a spike in inquiries. And there's an element of trust that comes with group travel, at least in our business. So people are asking questions about the precautions, taking our guidance on where to go. But Katherine pointed out something that we're also dealing with, is that in the African region, there is virtually no domestic travel market in some countries that's going to sustain tourism. And so a lot of our work has been like, what are we doing in the interim for those destinations Some of it has been bringing them on board and working with ministries of tourism on operationalizing virtual. But it's been definitely a challenge for that last mile of the kind of experiences that really drive money directly into the hands of people in a destination. It's those larger operators and larger trips that people feel more comfortable with because they're not out exploring on their own if they can even get to another country.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to ask some follow-up questions, but I want to keep moving to some other questions. So next is, as Pete had touched on in the intro to the event, Phocuswright tracks travel startups and their funding activity. I'm the main analyst who works on our startup reports. I'm currently working on our annual report, and I monitor the data throughout the year. So in January and February of this year, I kind of could already tell it looked like that this was it was poised to be the first year in a decade where funding to travel startups may not be rising year over year. Pete showed the one chart of, every year for 10 years, really, there's been more money poured into travel startups. And now with COVID, I'm sure this will be for sure the first year that won't happen. But question more for the investors first. Do you think funding to travel startups was greatly overextended in recent years, particularly at the early stage? I would argue certainly it seemed like later stage, but focusing on early stage, meaning, was a downturn in funding inevitable and COVID was the pin that pricked the bubble? Amir or Katherine?
Katherine, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. It's, when you look at the data, I think also maybe in these past years, there's also been some really huge deals within travel that maybe skew that, a little bit. And like any crisis, we kind of have to set the reset button. And I'm sure 2020 would have been a late blooming year, for your data, maybe not. And it is a challenge. And I think now the money, there's never a shortage. You're always looking for the good idea, and you're always looking for the quality employees and the rest of it. And I think now we'll see, as an investor, just being hypersensitive to not only the short-term mitigation of what that business is able to do, but the longer-term viability. That's absolutely a key. And so that money is going to be a little bit harder to attain. And I would say for those startups who are looking for new money and just starting fundraising, I think that's the bucket that's going to be very difficult, because lots of the money is going to go into existing portfolio companies to ensure that their portfolios are protected and can sustain and continue to grow. And that hyper critical element will be about the new ones that they bring on.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And I 100% agree that for plug and play in the travel industry, if we're going to make an investment for the foreseeable future, and foreseeable future is 3 to 6 months from now, that startup needs to have a short-term solution that reflects what the market needs immediately. But at the same time, they need to have a viable business model post-COVID. So that's critical. There's, again, because if there's a second outbreak and somebody's building a solution that doesn't take what the market needs immediately, then the long-term becomes obsolete in the eyes of the investor. So that's really important. But to answer your question, Mike, about a bubble, I've always said, I think the travel industry is one of the most underfunded industries. If you look at the GDP of travel, how much it contributes to the global economy, there's different numbers out there, but let's say around 10% of the global economy depends on the travel industry. And then you look at the overall venture capital investment, be it early stage or mid stage or late stage, what percentage of the global venture capital funding takes place in the travel industry, the numbers don't add up. So I don't think it was a bubble. Were startups getting higher valuations than they should have? Yes, but I think I think all the startups in all the industries were getting higher valuations than they should have, given the market conditions.
Interesting way to look at it, the size of the industry versus the amount of funding.
Hey, Mike, we've got a quick question from the audience that I'll just jump in on because I think it's relevant with a couple of female founders here. So, and maybe Amir and Katherine, you can chime in. Will you be investing more in startups with women founders, and how can women founders in travel tech gain more traction? And we can definitely maybe hear from you all really quickly on this one.
Katherine, do you want to go first?
I hope so. As a woman, absolutely. And with my female bias, you know, when you see a female founder, you know, more often than not, you have a really quality company behind it, because it takes a lot to succeed. It takes that little bit more to succeed as a female. And so I love that. And that's my own personal bias as well. So absolutely.
I don't know if we're going to be investing in more female-backed founders. I don't think traditionally Plug and Play, because we are such a diverse group and a diverse team, that we've never had any discriminating lens when a startup founder came and pitched us, regardless of that founder coming from minority groups or being male or female. So I don't know if we're going to actively be looking for more female founders. I think we're going to continue probably do what we've done in the past, which is we never made investment decisions based on the founders being male or female or what ethnicity or what religious groups they belong to. It's just, you know, investing in that individual as a human being. That is what we've always done and will continue to do.
Saniya, any perspective as female founders? Have you faced, have you felt you've been treated as entrepreneurs, or do you feel like things have been fair from your perspective?
I think it's difficult to say right now, just because fundraising in general as an early stage travel startup is so hard for any founders who are trying to raise right now. So for me, it's a little bit difficult to compare my experience with others' experiences right now, just because it has been so difficult. So I think someone else may be able to provide a better perspective on this than myself.
Fair enough. Staying on the theme of diversity, wanted to ask everyone, where do you think the industry has failed Black travelers and the Black community, and what actions can we take to begin the process of being a more inclusive industry? Cheraé, would you like to start with this one?
Yeah, I think it's funny, when I was thinking about the last question, I thought to myself that I've never gotten to the point where I could consider whether being a female founder was a Black, because I was always Black before I was a female. And so I've never felt that pinch, because the pinch that's more obvious to me is that I'm a Black founder. So I always, find that a bit difficult to lend perspective to. I think the biggest challenge in the industry is just recognition of the market size. And I think that has had adverse effects on Black founders who are working on companies that are dedicated to this market. I think Tastemakers is one of the few venture-backed travel companies working on products for the Black traveler. And it took me 4 years to be able to say that, despite having, $500,000 in revenue, country offices, going through the accelerators. It took a long time of building with very, very little capital to get to the place where I am now. And I don't think that, I think a lot of it was this consistent conversation around, well, is the market big enough? And I think it is a place where the industry needs to do some self-reflection and education around that market and how big it is and what the opportunity is. And the fact that those founders who are building for that market, deserve to have the staff and complexity within their organizations to go after it. I think broadly speaking, there's just a lot of bias in the audience as a niche. There's a lot of bias around their spending power and their behaviors. And I think even when I look at COVID, the broader conversation was no one's traveling, but with the conversation on institutional racism in America, Black travelers are literally messaging us every day, like, please get me out of here. So I think there are some trends that are different than the mainstream that the industry just literally doesn't think about. And I think that's a place to start from.
Yeah, thanks for that. Other thoughts on this, or even ideas on how Phocuswright with our reach and influence in the industry can help to address these issues?
The way I think of this, Michael, is, for plug and play, let's say on the venture side of our practice, the worst thing we can do is invest in a female founder or a minority founder just for the sake of investing in them and backing them in light of all the, everything that's going on in the world today. What we should be doing is definitely spending more time with the, I would say, folks who have not been getting the support or as much support as other ethnicities or female founders versus male founders. We should be spending more time with them to help them on their path and make sure that they're getting access to the necessary resources to go after their dreams. I think that is so much more important than just blindly investing in an entrepreneur who comes from minority groups or female founders just to say that I invested in so many startups that were backed by African Americans or female founders. So what I would like to challenge our team to do is definitely spend more time with female founders, definitely spend more time with African American founders, and make sure that every knowledge we have is transferred to them, and make sure that they're getting access to the same resources that they may not have had access to in the past.
And maybe I can step in. I don't think, as a female, that we would ever want investment to tick a box for VC just because we're female. That's not what I think, the movement is about. Personally, I think it's more about putting a spotlight on this to try to remove some of the unconscious bias that is there so that, we get a fair shot at the table. I think this is really what it's about. And if it was, pity money, to say it that way, then, I don't, no quality founder would want that and want that investor, they want that investor engaged because they believe in them and the idea, but at the same time, just trying to remove those unconscious biases. And as we move through, the different movements and now with Black Lives Matter, I think for me personally, and as an investor, and it's about listening, so right now, I think I'm more in the stage of just listening to try to understand before formulating, a view and just trying to understand where any of additional unconscious bias may exist so that we can try to overcome that. I think that's my perspective on that.
Thanks, yeah. We have just 4 minutes left. So, that was great talking about, how can we support entrepreneurs of all backgrounds better. And just, so my last question is talking about opportunities, things we can do better or given the current circumstances and crises, what are the silver linings and maybe specifically regarding COVID, just to end on that, will we come out of this with a lot of introspection, time for introspection and better ways of doing things going forward? Is there more experimentation going on? Is innovation suffering because startups are potentially going under during this time? Or is a crisis the best time for innovation to blossom? So just closing thoughts on that note.
Yeah, so from a startup's perspective, what I can share is that I've seen over the last year, pre-COVID, a lot of the big industry players have been interested in innovation, but their time to execution is very slow. and they had a very long process for any startup that wanted to work with them. But in the last 3 months, I've heard more from those companies than I have in the last year, because there's such a need and there's such an urgency for innovation, and they want to do it quickly. And the way to do that is to work with startups and work with people who are already innovating for the future. And so I think it's been a huge opportunity for startups, both early stage and late stage, to see how much there is a demand for innovation and how open some of these large industry players that we've been wanting to work with, but they've been slow to move. There's such an opportunity now for us to work with them. And so hopefully that'll be an opportunity that continues to persist even past COVID.
Yeah, good to hear. Other thoughts? Just have another minute or two left.
The best thing that's come out of this pandemic, Michael, is clean airplane cabins and clean hotel rooms. I can't believe it took a pandemic for us to pay more attention to our hygiene. So that's the best thing for me. But on the digitalization and innovation side, I think it's making hospitality brands and airlines really talk about automating their processes quite a bit. And they're doing it because they want to save some money and lower their cost. And they want to come up with contactless solutions for passengers to stimulate the market again and build trust. So I think you are going to see an increased rate of adoption for automation for internal processes on behalf of airlines and hospitality brands and even airports. And then you are going to see a wave of contactless solutions, which ultimately is going to make these businesses more, I would say, lean and hopefully contribute to their margins.
Katherine, Cheraé, just a minute left. Silver linings, quickly.
I think from my side, it's just a huge opportunity for those of us working in travel to think more broadly about how our industry relates to our consumer and how we take care of them pre, during, and post-trip. I think there's a huge opportunity for travel to sit back in that sort of transformational space, and how we speak to our communities within the industry at a time when people couldn't travel is as important as it is when people are ready to transact with us again.
Yeah, and I think in the short term, in terms of the innovation and startups, you'll probably see some maybe fail a bit quicker, especially the ones who haven't had to kind of pivot and kind of buckle down and implement a risk mitigation plan of some sort just to get up to the other side of this. And then I can also just second Amir's point around technology, and a lot of the customers now embracing technology potentially more quicker as a way to survive and automate certain processes to not only save money, but then offer a better guest experience.
Great. Okay, we're out of time, but thank you all very much for an illuminating and important discussion. Really appreciate your thoughts. Back to you, Pete, to introduce our next session.
Thanks a lot, Mike. That was a great panel. Well done. So it's my pleasure to announce the next session, when cultural revolutionaries and technology meet. And our next speaker, who heads up Expedia's platform and marketplaces team. And instead of focusing on his past accomplishments, which include leading the digital transformation of HomeAway after the acquisition by Expedia, or heading the product team at Expedia as the online travel giant integrated Orbitz and Travelocity and What If and AirAsia, or contributing multiple years of double-digit growth in conversion, I prefer to instead focus on what happens at his dinner table when his family members text. So please join me in virtually welcoming John Kim, who requires that anyone texting at his dinner table tells him who they're texting and what specifically they're texting. So John, take it away.
Thank you so much, Pete. Hopefully everybody can see me. This is my first Zoom presentation, so I don't know how all this works, and so I'm trying to work on all of these knobs.
You look great.
Definitely, I'm thinking about the last time that I found somebody texting at the table. Oh yes, I remember. I was having dinner with my family, and I was with my wife, and she was texting somebody about diaper rash. So I think that's totally acceptable. We have a newborn baby. She's now almost 18 months old, and we're always texting people about different things that we observe, and I think that's okay, even at the dinner table. Anyways, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, Pete, for inviting me. Thank you so much for Phocuswright for welcoming me. I'm super excited to be here. I also want to say that I've been listening in to most of the conference, and thank you to the entrepreneurs. Holy cow, you guys are putting together some great ideas. You guys are putting your heart and soul into it. You can tell some of you have not been sleeping. I don't mean that as an insult. I just know that you've been working super hard, and you've been putting you're probably putting your whole life towards this thing, this idea, and we need that. And I can't imagine how hard it is right now, because it's hard enough to drive a startup, more or less, also try to do it in the time of COVID and some interesting times. But hang in there, and please, take care of yourselves. It's really important that we all get basically some ability to recover physically and mentally. And it's super important if you're trying to change an industry and trying to invent something. I think we all appreciate that. And thank you all so much. All right, now what I'm going to try to do is actually share my screen and my slides. So bear with me. I'm going to see how this goes. Here we go. All right. Well, I just want to start off that, pre-COVID, something had happened. I read something in the news that really saddened me, and that was Larry Tesler, as they said here in the Washington Post. He passed away at 74, and they called him the inventor of copy and paste. And when I read this, I was really saddened. I was saddened for a couple of reasons. One is that I was saddened that such a legend in the industry had passed away. And for those who don't know who he is, I'll go over his past. And then I was sad because he was a colleague of mine, and I was sad for his family, and I was sad for his friends. And, there's a lot of people that he touched and he worked with. And, we all felt the same way, which was what a remarkable life. And he did so many remarkable things. And it was sad to see him pass away. For those of you who don't know who he is, he was a leading researcher at Park during the 70s. And in the 70s, they had put together this research group to really just try to explore the future of computing. And there, he had the idea to put together the first graphical interface in 1979. He worked with Steve Jobs in '83 to launch Apple Lisa. And then, in '84, he launched the first Mac. And he had a shared dream at Park, and it was extended into Apple, which was, hey, they had this dream, which is, hey, can we put a computer in every single home? And it was a profound idea. It was such a radical idea at the time. And they were able to accomplish so much. And he was a pioneer, and he was able to contribute so much to this particular idea. For those who don't remember, or in the 1970s, there's this YouTube video that's awesome, which is they're trying to teach kids how to use computers from the 70s. And you can imagine looking at a screen like this and looking at a computing device like this, like it was very daunting. And what made it really daunting was that computers were not built to be user-friendly. In fact, they were the exact opposite. And in order to do anything in computing, some of you may actually remember this. Many of you will have no idea what I'm talking about. But how computers worked is that you actually had to enter these things called modes. And so if you wanted to move a piece of text, for example, you had to enter move mode and then leave in move mode by pushing escape. And if you wanted to copy something, you had to put it into copy mode, and then you had to go into leave it and then go into paste mode. And that made computers very, very cumbersome to use. And Larry, one of his ideas, he thought, one of the things we should do is we should take people into a lab, train them how to use a computer, and then see where they have difficulty, and then actually have them leave and then come back, let's say in a week, and then test them again to see what they recalled. And by the way, here is actually a copy of his original notes. He published some of his original notes on Twitter, and I found them. I think they're amazing. But this gives you a sense of, like, on the bottom, like what those commands were. You had to enter every one of those commands. And what he found was, when he was doing the research, that almost nobody could remember any of the commands. They needed a cheat sheet. Nobody remembered JB, jump to the beginning. Nobody remembered JE, which was jump to the end. Nobody remembered like replace that you had to push Control R. Like nobody can remember these things. And so even though they would train them on how to use these computers, like nobody could remember how to use these computers. So, you know, it was through a number of these tests that he started developing these ideas in regards to, if we have this dream, we want to have computing in every home, we want to make it more accessible to everybody, we've got to get rid of this notion that there are modes. And so this is where he developed this principle. It's a very famous principle. It's called Larry's principle. And it was this idea that there should be no modes. We should not have computing where we have to ask people to do things unnaturally. We can't ask people to use computers by using it, by accessing it through modes. We should live in a world where we, you know, the technology industry, we should have no modes. And that was basically the slogan, a very, very famous slogan. And he did it at a time, by the way, where it was very accepted that this is the way computers worked. And so for him to have this idea was a very radical idea. And by the way, like I loved the last session when we were talking about the panel where, the discussion was, hey, maybe the Black travelers is a very small niche. Well, maybe that is basically the notion that we have at this time, that we just accept certain things and we have to challenge these notions. And back then in computing, like almost every computer scientist was really focused on how do you improve processing power? How do you improve the computing speed? And they didn't worry about user accessibility or user experience. So, you know, I think what made Larry Tesla remarkable was this no modes idea. Not only was it a powerful idea that inspired Steve Jobs, inspired a whole new line of thinking in regards to how do we really truly bring the computer to every home. What Larry also did was that, you know, that principle really set forth and inspired a whole generation of great independent thinkers in the world of computer science. There's probably not one great independent thinker that we can think of, or great philosopher that we can think of, or any of the fathers or mothers of computer science back then who were not inspired by Larry Tesla and his thinking around, hey, can we set forth a set of principles that we can live by? This is my, by the way, this is my 13-month-old daughter at 13 months. She can use an iPhone. And what's remarkable to me is just how far the world has come. So we've left the world just, you know, maybe a generation ago where we had to access computers through modes. And now we live in a time where people are born, and by the time, before they could even say maybe their first word, they can use the iPhone. They can access computing. They can actually access all human knowledge. So I just go back to, what did Larry do? Because they called him the father of cut and paste. But, you know, when you really think about it, he had a vision, which was to make computing more accessible to everyone. He identified a real core blocker that got in the way, which was this idea of modes. He developed a principle to attack these obstacles. And then he dedicated his entire life towards this idea. And this was really his identity. And if you've ever seen Larry Tesla drive in San Jose, or he also lived in Seattle, you would see him with this license plate. This really was a core part of his identity. He truly believed in it. You know, when I met him at Yahoo, he worked there for a while. I remember my first meeting with him. It was very exciting because I, you know, wanted to bring up, hey, you had this principle, no modes. And I was curious what he thought would be a follow-on principle, that, you know, what other ideas he might have, what he saw as the big computing problems of our time and our generation. And what he told me, he ended the meeting with this, which is, hey, John, if you don't see modes, then you're not seeing the world. Modes are everywhere. And he ended the meeting. It was quite remarkable. I remember because I was so excited to meet him. And I thought, wow, that's your advice. But as I went back to my desk and I really thought about like what he had taught me or what he had explained to me, it was true, is that we still have modes everywhere. We just have to look closely enough. And I think, like, as we start to think about travel now, and we think about what's occurred in the world, I think COVID is exposing us. It's exposing the entire industry, which is that we're making it super hard. We make it super hard to travel. There's pain all across the entire journey. You know, some of the entrepreneurs in their pitches, they've been identifying some of these pain points. It's our job as an industry to try to remove this pain. We need to envision a world where you know, can we envision a world actually where there's no modes for travel? In the same way that they were really focused on those obstacles for computing, can we make travel more accessible? And then I think it's important for all the entrepreneurs to really remember this idea, which is that ideas come and go. Ideas come and go, but inventing should be based on principle. And so when we call Larry Tesler the father of cut and paste, like, it is inadequate to call him that, because he really truly believed in this principle, and everything that he did was based on this idea that he could make it easier, that the world can make it easier for people to access computing. And we need to invent on this idea that we can make travel more accessible for everyone. Well, Larry lived in a time where, you know, home computing was the big trend that he was trying to invest in. As we now fast forward to our time, we have some major trends now that we have to pay attention to. And so there's some things that, you know, I'm really paying close attention to, which is, hey, we're living in a time where we have to really consider and think about the breakthroughs in processing power in AI over the next decade. You know, I saw a bunch of ideas that were being pitched around the idea of mass productization of data. And this is a real trend and something that we have to pay close attention to. And then third, I didn't see enough of this, but there is this emerging element, other than the augmented reality presentation, which I really appreciated, that we are living in a time where user experiences are going to go through a massive game change. And as we start to think about these trends, like your smartphone today, if you own an iPhone 10, think about this. That smartphone has more computing power than every single computing device combined in the world in 1986. And so Michael Jordan was drafted in 1984. So that means that was 2 years after. It wasn't that long ago. And we now have all of that power on our devices today. So if you were to then project forward and actually put onto a graph, how much processing power, in how many years will we have all the processing power that is available today in the world, every device combined, every computer combined? When will we have then maybe an equivalent of a phone, because we don't know what it's going to look like? In 34 years, we will have as much power personally as available today on Earth. So like, we continue this trend, so we might envision, what does that world look like? Now, if you were to meet someone with that much power, if someone were to walk in the room saying, hey, I can basically access all processing power on Earth, you would think of that person as God. We're headed towards that. This is the world we're headed towards. Every day, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are being created. Here's the thing to think about, right? 90% of the world's data was created in the last 24 months. And that continues to be a trend. It's not stopping. So as we start to think forward in regards to, hey, as we look at that timeline, we see this incredible access that we're going to have, incredible power that's going to be generated, and then the incredible data that we haven't even seen before. In the next 24 months, we will see data that we've never seen before, and it will be productized. The cost of storage has declined 50% every 14 months for the last 30 years, and we don't see that slowing anytime soon. And we're productizing a lot more of it. What do I mean by that? Well, we're datafying it, and then we're putting the data in a form where it's machine analyzable and machine readable. And so we're able to scale these massive data sets to solve problems we've just never been able to solve before. And again, I saw a little bit of this element in the pitches in regards to datafication and solving some of the issues in terms of commissions that, you know, perhaps like 4 years ago, it was just a pipe dream. But today, in today's world where we're starting to productize this data, more and more use cases like that can emerge. And then this is providing us the energy to build basically game-changing user experiences. You know, tech giants today, they're spending about $5 billion alone on voice recognition alone. The entire industry is spending about $135 billion in the US just to do video marketing. And then we are right on the precipice for a breakthrough in AI in basically photoshopping video. That's the best way of thinking about it. I know that people call it deep fakes, but it is really about this idea that you can manipulate video to the point where you cannot discern it from reality. And, you know, just to show you just how far we've come, like people are putting together very interesting pieces of content.
You know, it's funny what a young man recollects, because I don't remember being born. I don't recall what I got for my first Christmas. I don't know when I went on my first outdoor picnic, but I do remember the first time I heard the sweetest voice in the wide world.
You can sit here if you want.
Now, you know, and by the way, typically people when they're watching the video are laughing, and we laugh because how realistic this looks. And by the way, what we're talking about, what we're viewing is just a hobby. These are people at home just messing around, playing around. This is not like the industry, which can put together large budgets to actually invest and productize and produce things at massive scale at high quality. So I give basically the same advice that Larry Tesler gave me, which is that we have to live in this world where we invent on principle, and we think that and I believe that the intersection of the next great company is going to be at the intersection of these two things, which is these major tech trends, which are changing the way that we really think about the world and the business that will emerge. And this idea that we've got to make it easier for travelers. So no modes for travel. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time. And thank you to all the entrepreneurs for putting in your time, your effort, and your life towards invention.
Great. Thanks so much, John. That was fantastic. I think really useful for the audience as well as the innovators. So thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely.
So now the fun part. So we get to announce the winners here today. So we have a judge's choice, and the prize for the judges / dragon's choice is a spot on the Focusrite Summit stage in November. And then we have a people's choice, which was voted on by the audience. So we're pulling up all the innovators here. Oscars style, we will announce the winners, and we'll go through them pretty quickly. I see we've got 6 out of the 7. Who are we missing?
Felix should be starting up.
There's Felix. So congratulations, all of you, once again. The pitches were really, really good. Well done. We've received a lot of great comments already from the audience. So the winner of the judge's choice is Nate Marcus from OccassionGenius, and the winner for the people's choice, Brett Ziegler from Trip Ninja. So congratulations to the two of you. We look forward to seeing Nate, although we can't see his face right now.
My webcam's not working, but I'm here and very happy.
I can tell he's celebrating behind the scenes. So we look forward to seeing Nate at the summit, at the Focusrite conference. And we are planning to produce the best hybrid event in the industry. We hope to be there in person. But we know that many of you won't be able to make it. So we'll certainly have a virtual component to that as well. As far as kind of logistics here to close off the event, for all of you who registered and want to go back to any of the sessions, we will send out a recording link to you over the next couple of days, so look out for that. And remember to tune in to FocusWire for our ongoing series, New Reality With, where we have leaders from across the industry that are kind of mapping out where they are today, as well as what the future holds. Our In Focus podcast and series, which is a data focus series, kind of collaboration between FocusWire and Focusrite Research. And lastly, How I Got Here podcast. Hopefully we will see many of you on that podcast in the future, where we talk to founders of companies and kind of map out their history. So thanks again. We will reconvene in Phoenix in November, and we look forward to seeing many of you there. Have a great rest of your day.